Welcome to yourstory.com. Today we're going to be talking education and the impact of it. We're going to be talking about management education precisely. And I've got a very special guest, somebody who's had a 35-year illustrious career in education. She's a senior alumni of IIM Calcutta. Let me go and make the introductions immediately. I've got with me Professor Anju Seth, who assumed the position of the Director of IIM Calcutta in 2018. She's the first female director to have been appointed in the role. While in the role, she has initiated many, many good things. Okay, she's gone to restructure the funding processes for growth of the institute's research capacities. She's gone on to create partnerships with organizations and linkages with alumni to bolster the learning process for students. Professor Seth aims to expand the global presence of the institute by focusing on specific areas of specialization. The institute is tying up with multiple partners to achieve this goal. An idea is to work on a strategic plan so as to upscale the capacity of the core areas of specialization of the institute, such as analytics and supply chain management. IIM Calcutta has entered into a partnership with Coursera to offer online certificate programs so as to cater to a global audience. Professor Seth is keen on collaborating with incubators worldwide, using the institute's incubation center, IIM Calcutta Innovation Park, as a medium. IIMCIP has been a major driver of success for many startups in this country. Seth is an alumnus of IIM Calcutta, like I mentioned before. She's from the 1978 batch and has a doctorate degree from the University of Michigan. She joined Virginia Tech in 2008 and headed its Department of Management from 2008 to 2013. Professor Seth has held the position of Pamplin Professor of Management at Virginia Tech, USA. Prior to joining Virginia Tech, she was a professor of business administration at the University of Illinois. She completed a PhD from the University of Michigan and has an academic career spanning, like I said, over 25 years. She has received numerous awards for her teaching and research and is on the editorial board of many scholarly journals. And if that isn't enough, she was also at the University of Illinois and the University of Houston. Ma'am, what an illustrious career. I have no words to describe this. Welcome to yourstory.com. Thank you for being here. And I'm going to be happy to be discussing about the state of education and what IIM Calcutta can offer to the startup community and the corporate community. Welcome, ma'am. How are you?
Very well. Thank you, Vishal. Thank you so much for inviting me to your story and for that very flattering introduction.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. And, I was a management student once, and, I've always wondered what was the outcome of management education? What significance did we bring in as graduates? It took me 20 years to understand that. And I realized it was about understanding an idea and taking it to scale and being sustainable in the process. Am I about right, ma'am? You should tell me, please.
So I think, Vishal, you've put it very well. When I think of what we hope to accomplish as management educators, it is very fundamentally about understanding not just one idea, but perhaps a set of ideas and understanding cause and effect linkages between those ideas to then go about transforming business in a fashion that is practical, but also has its basis in the realities of cause and effect linkages in order to make any kind of change possible, or in order to be successful in the business context. Peeling the onion to understand those cause effect linkages is absolutely crucial. So when you are a business student, whether you are specializing in the area of finance or marketing or production or supply chain, one key ingredient of your success would be to be able to create the hypotheses that yield the outcomes that you wish to achieve. And so we think about this as, the ability to think critically. More and more, it is becoming important to be not just specialized, but to have the capability to think outside the box across different business disciplines, to be able to have good conversations with technologists. To be able to speak different languages, if you like, whether it's the language of science, or the language of IT, or the language of management, These are all aspects of business that are becoming even more important. They've always been important, becoming much more important now.
Ma'am, that's wonderful. I like this cross-functional experience that you say is very important in life. You have a degree in psychology, and then you went on to become a management professional, a consultant, and then an academic, right? You fuse these three things very well. I would like you to, and you spoke about hypothesis building in life, right? I just want you to, this is very encouraging for me because any startup or any founder out there would have to have an hypothesis and a structured
Absolutely.
approach. Could you quickly touch upon that? Because I want to understand creating and maintaining a sustainable method with education, because a lot of the founders would want to be mentored with education later on. I think it's very important. Please, can you tell us a little bit about this?
So, Vishal, I'm going to use an example of what
Yes,
we're
please.
accomplishing right now in the context of a wonderful ecosystem that we have recently set up at IIM Calcutta. And this is a partnership between IIM Calcutta, the institute,
Yes.
IMCIP, which is the incubator, and our student organizations. We have just created a new experiment whereby students work with alumni mentors. These alumni are typically entrepreneurs themselves, as well as incubating companies, as well as some delightful and very talented um, board members of IMCIP. And so, what we've created is a project whereby
Yeah.
the incubatee is working jointly in teams with partnership teams of all of these different individuals on a weekly basis to take their ideas to fruition. But what this integral part of this exercise is to understand those cause effect linkages. So, for example, we have mini lectures of what does it mean to market, what does it mean to find a new market, to create a new market when one doesn't exist. Much of the time, we have entrepreneurs who have an amazing idea but have no idea what is the market for that
Correct.
idea,
Correct, ma'am.
right? And so then to be able to understand um, the nature of the market, how to approach that market, how to create a sustainable solution for that market. So it's not just having a product, it's about having a solution. So we are, with these teams, we are encouraging our entrepreneurs to get business education as it is on the ground. I must also tell you, these are not necessarily your traditional entrepreneurs. So, for
Yeah.
example, we've got goat farmers. There's a goat farming entrepreneur who's doing extremely well, and they're learning business in a hands-on kind of fashion in order to be able to sustainably grow their business. At the same time, our students who are partnering this exercise are learning about business in a real world context because they're helping as consultants, if you like, learning and consulting at the time.
Yes.
At the same time, our mentors are having a blast. They're so happy to be engaged with the institute, and so we're very pleased with the way this is shaping up, and we hope to
Mhm.
grow this
Yeah.
kind of model of partnerships between our alumni, between industry, and with our students to create more practical experiences in different aspects of business.
How entrepreneurs are being mentored at your prestigious institution. I also wanted you to talk about the distinguished alumni in the context of entrepreneurship and why they play a vital role for these startups and these founders, and also many of the corporate people who want to be mentored by alumni. And also, if you can bring in the student clubs that are part of the IMCIP, why they play a vital role in this whole.
So let me talk a little bit about our distinguished alumni who are part of this exercise. And I'm
Yeah.
Calcutta. We've been very fortunate to have distinguished alumni across a host of industries. They are corporate leaders, they are academic leaders, but they're
Yes.
also entrepreneurs par excellence. And so, for example, Shrikant Shastri, who is the chairperson of the board of IMCIP, is deeply involved in entrepreneurial ventures. Shankar, who is recently went public with his IPO, um, of is on the board of IMCIP. Bharat Salotra. There are many, many wonderful entrepreneurs who are lending their expertise are distinguished in their own right, but then are
Correct.
also sharing their expertise and knowledge with us. Another way we leverage the expertise of these alums who are entrepreneurs, by the way, I should also mention, is that we have a new YouTube channel that we've set up
Yes.
whereby we conduct interviews and panel discussions with our entrepreneurs who are alumni for the benefit of not just our student clubs and our but for anyone in the world. So it's nice to reconnect with our alums from different parts of the world who come and attend these seminars. All right, so the success stories, but also the failures
Yes.
that our alumni have encountered are just so valuable to learn about from the viewpoint of being able to conduct a new business, how to manage
Correct.
yourself out of the COVID pandemic if you happen to be a small business owner. We just had a panel discussion that talked about these sorts of issues, right? And so we want to leverage the expertise and the knowledge of these of our alums. I should also mention that we have a particular interest in um, in enterprises that
Yes.
make social impact. And when we think about measurement of what we would like to achieve, it is all about the impact, whether it's in the context
Correct.
of student learning or research or our incubated companies. We want to have sizable impact. We would like these incubated companies to grow at scale.
Correct.
So bringing
Correct.
network of individuals together that can learn from each other and build synergies has become very hard. Yep.
I'm very glad you brought this up. Partnerships are the way forward. Industry academia collaboration is very important. Research and R&D, to support startups is very important. I think, your time spent in the US understanding those pedagogic models, the way academia and corporate collaborate. In fact, a lot of the academia helps startups scale up brilliantly. And some of the professors are renowned, like yourself. I mean, I'd like to hear that knowledge from you. Why this collaboration needs to change in India? It's a new era of India. You've seen 3 decades of it in the academic world. What are your thoughts on this, man?
So, Vishal, let me just start off by explaining the kind of business models of academia industry collaboration
Yes,
that I've been encountered in the US in the context of R&D.
yes, please.
And these are with large universities, both Virginia Tech and the University of Illinois, where I was in the US associated with. In the business school, we had partnerships with the engineering school, with the science, with the departments of science. Another very important aspect of both of these universities was the presence of an entity that was set up to foster industry academia collaborations, but also to patent the knowledge that was developed by the scientists and researchers across the
Yes,
university. And to be able, and when you say license, well, patent, there's patenting, but then what is a patent
yes,
for? The value of a patent is its licensing value. It has to be commercialized. So I was on the board of the Virginia Tech entity of this kind. And we work very closely with our faculty members who were inventors and entrepreneurs um, in order to be able to help them to license
yes,
their ideas, their products and their ideas, and working obviously very closely with industry. That kind of mechanism is just so important. It creates incentives for the individual faculty member, the scientist or the engineer who has new ideas to be able to bring those ideas to fruition. Much of the time it's not about the money that the
correct.
entrepreneurial faculty member will make. It is about, you've got a grand idea, you're working in the area of, say, microelectronics. You have this grand idea and you would like to see it come to fruition. And so the task to create entities that help that happen um, in a synergistic fashion is just something that I think that we could borrow from. I don't
Yes,
see too many of these kinds of things. They probably do exist. Perhaps I don't know of their existence, but it is an incredibly valuable way to create growth, to
Yeah.
take scientific knowledge into in business, into industry. We did, I should mention, I should say, we recently created a partnership with the West Bengal R&D set up in order
Yes.
to be able to try to leverage their scientific expertise using IIM knowledge and expertise as well. But that's sort of in the context of one R&D lab and
Correct, ma'am.
IMCIP. That kind of model also could be grown.
Correct, ma'am. I agree with you. And this is interesting. For me, I mean, because we serve the startup community, I would tell the startup community to go and check out IMC there, because they also help in research R&D. You take your idea to them. They have, the IMC IP that can help you. They have professors that can come and mentor you. And professors also have their own research that you can probably partner with and commercialize. Ma'am, but what is the role of corporations in this, ma'am? We should not miss them. Corporates are, startups become corporate SMBs and SMBs become corporate. What are your thoughts on, in your vast experience, how important a role has corporate played in seeding ideas and making sure that these new ideas may go on to make impact?
Hugely important. Much of the time, a corporation is the one that spots the need in the market and then is scouting around with
Yes,
universities as to, is there an idea that is in the nascent stage at any one of these universities or one of these labs that we might potentially be able to capitalize on? But then bringing that corporation and the inventor together is an art that we have to work really hard as a nation to develop. Creating those networks of partnerships is not an easy thing to do. It requires very specialized expertise. It requires not just knowledge of the underlying
yeah,
science of the technology, but also very good connect with business. It involves creating a network of people who understand the law associated with these issues. And these are global contexts. If
yeah.
I think about this, and let's not just think in the context of India, because when I was looking when I was at the University of Illinois, we were looking at partnerships with corporations around the world,
Yes.
right? It's not just a within country thing. It's because science is science, knowledge is knowledge, and the capability to leverage that knowledge to make a difference, to may have a solid impact, is something that is a world
Yeah.
as can have worldwide significance.
Yeah, that's a very valid point. I hope any corporate watching this, your story supports startups. Hopefully, with academia, we could collaborate and take ideas from institutes like IMC and take it forward, right? But
But Vishal,
ma'am,
I would like
ma'am,
to make
go
another thing.
on, go
Can
on,
I
ma'am.
say? Yeah,
You should,
one
ma'am,
other thing here.
please.
The corporations in the US that I've encountered, the same is true in much of Europe and the UK as well, um, is will also be quite generous in setting up and funding centers of excellence in order to take forward their particular areas of interest. So, for example, um, you could think about a center for artificial intelligence or for analytics and so on. And so this sort of center is one that creates benefits for the university or for the institute as well as for the corporate. So we would like
Yeah.
to see more of that kind of collaborative.
Nice, nice. And being a woman director, your story is a woman first organization. 70% of our organization is women. The founder herself is a woman, obviously. And we've pioneered the fact that women in India can go startup, make impact, right? In your context, ma'am, I mean, from the era that you started at and now, what advice would you give to women entrepreneurs? I mean, I know that K Ganesh and Meena Ganesh, who I know very well, now I remember they were also part of IMC, I'm sure.
Correct,
And
yes,
right? So
absolutely. I know
so
them well. Yeah.
great, ma'am. And so from that context, right, what would you advise women entrepreneurs and other women who want to come into IMC, or any other IM for a matter of fact, what advice would you give them when it comes to knowledge, learning, and entrepreneurship?
So I'm struck by a recollection I have of a seminar I attended only a couple of days ago. And the researcher at the seminar was describing how women entrepreneurs or women board leaders actually, but this applies to women entrepreneurs, are generally more capable of more risk taking than men. And I think this may be true to some degree. That so I think that one piece of advice I have for women entrepreneurs is don't lose your sense of adventure. Embrace
That
the
is
risk.
true.
I,
That's the,
that was such an interesting piece of research. Uh, uh, and casual empiricism suggests that it may very well be true. so, so
absolutely,
so embrace the
absolutely.
risk, but also I think that um, understanding the nature of the need that is to be served is something that I think that women do pay a particular attention to. It's not to say that men don't, but uh,
I
understanding
get what you
what
mean.
is the main nature of the need. And so my advice to women entrepreneurs is maintain a sense of risk taking while understanding the nature of the need, right?
That's a
Uh,
very and the need is the hypothesis of the business. Where
the
does it want to
hypothesis
go?
of the business, yes. What impact is it? What difference is it going to make?
Yes.
And when we think about impact, it really is what difference is it going to make, to whom is it going to make a difference,
Yeah.
and why, in what
Yeah.
positive way is it going to shape anyone's life going forward, right?
Mhm.
And so that larger societal impact is what entrepreneurial capability is all about. And so I would encourage the women to just stay focused and understanding what that is while taking those reasonable risks. And
Yes.
it's also an interesting complication that women have to face is maintaining a good work-life balance.
Sticking with you before, I know everybody wants to hear about the national education policy. We'll get there in a bit, but I'm fascinated with ma'am's experience. I would like to know, you specialize in M&A at a very early part of your career.
Yes.
Uh, and and looking at M&As, right? India is going through an unprecedented time in startups starting up because they feel that some at some point of time there'll be a huge M&A in a lot of their ideas and IP. Yet India has struggled to find that balance for 10 years. A lot of ideas come and go by the wayside. Funding is a problem sometimes. Scaling up is a problem sometimes. Very few corporate acquisitions in the country. Any thoughts from your experience in the West? You M&As happen all the time in universities there, I heard too, right?
Well, to some degree, I mean, there are
Yeah,
collaborations, but um, I'm not sure I want to will say much more about mergers across universities, but certainly in the corporate context. I mean, M&A is
correct,
very
correct.
powerful phenomenon and a very standard phenomenon. Why did I get excited about this? I must
Yes,
say,
please. Yes,
I
please.
this is going back to my early consulting days. My first job out of IIM Calcutta was with a wonderful firm called AF Ferguson and Company.
Yes.
And I was fortunate to be the executive assistant to the partner in charge.
Uh-huh.
Uh, Truly visionary gentleman called L.K. Ratna. And LKR had all the exciting M&A projects that they were to
Okay.
work on. So, and I
Mhm.
was, I was just a consultant. I was working in marketing things and accounting. I can actually tally a trial balance manually, or used to be able to do that. But I found that I gravitated towards M&A kinds of assignments and work very closely
Correct.
with Nokia. And I think the idea that struck me with mergers and acquisitions was the immense potential for creation of value. So,
Yes.
I've used the word synergy many times in this conversation. This is the idea of 2 plus 2 equals 5. This is something that this phenomenon of synergy, how to bring about synergy, how to create that 2 plus 2 equals 5 kind of idea. Well, I explore that in the context of corporate companies,
Nice.
right? Why
Nice.
does one company acquire another? Now, but that same fundamental notion is applicable to whether you think about startups or partnerships between incubators and angel investors and
Yes.
entrepreneurs. Ultimately, what are we doing? We're all about creating value for in the
Absolutely, ma'am.
ecosystem. So back to your specific question about uh, India. So one absolutely crucial aspect of value creating acquisition is the ability to be able to value that
Yeah.
the target company, right? And those are the kinds of assignments actually I was working on in AF Ferguson, understanding valuation. Now, but valuation in India is not an easy job because data is just not transparent in the same way as it is in the US. If you cannot value a company, you are taking a level of risk that is difficult to quantify. In some
Correct.
sense, when you see that high level of risk, what you typically tend to do if you're an acquirer is you might try to downgrade the price because right. So then the target company says, well, why would I want to sell out for that relatively
Absolutely,
for
man.
that discounted price? So the market for acquisitions is not as steep
Robust.
as it could be, as robust as it
Yeah.
could be. And some part of that is that data, the transparency of the data. But that has been improving.
Yes.
That has been great strides have been made with the new stock exchange rules
Yes.
and government norms that have come into
Yes.
place. So then that we hope that will continue. Um,
Ma'am,
yeah.
this is a question for all researchers out there, professors who want to become researchers. You know, the discipline that you talked about, right, in academia and knowledge. I mean, they should actually. I mean, you have set a precedent saying that if you're good at your knowledge and your research, you can become mentors to companies. I I would recommend startups to actually work with academia that way. Go find professors who are doing research. You know, validate your idea with a researcher. Well, that's a very important aspect. Wouldn't you agree, ma'am? Then data becomes so important. Data gets created. The corporate gets to understand the impact that you're making, and perhaps that leads to value creation and M&A.
I think that the combination of all of these kinds of skills is
Yes,
absolutely crucial because ultimately what are you talking about, Vishal? These are capabilities. Each one of us, each one of the parties, entities that you talked about is specialized knowledge in one fashion or another.
yes,
We can't be experts in everything. And so
yes.
to be able to create a mechanism to share that expertise but also in a fashion where you speak each other's language. You mentioned working with that startup companies working with um, faculty
Please,
members,
yes.
but the faculty members and the entrepreneur must speak the same language. Let me go back to the story.
Yeah, please.
Goat farming entrepreneur. There is no way we would ask the goat farming entrepreneur to come to one of our executive education classes that talks about strategy. However, it is important that we impart lessons of strategy in a meaningful manner that makes sense. So there are versions and versions, and this kinds of customization is what I think that we as IIM Calcutta, we would like to be able to leverage that sort of customized approach in different fashions to take entrepreneurial ventures forward.
You know, now I'm going to get to the favorite topic that everybody is hopeful of. I've been talking to the government. The government talks about an education stack. The national education policy, is very progressive. But there are some things that we need to recommend as writers, as academia. We need to put our ideas forth there to say that there are some things that can also be done differently. And I'm glad this entire theme we spoke about partnerships, that there are resources already available. Let us plug into those. Let us combine. Let us create data. Let us create impact jointly. On that note, what do you think about the national education policy?
Well, in many ways, Vishal, I'm a great fan of the national education policy. I think, in theory, much of it is very powerful. I really like the language that it puts forth to encourage all aspects of the education sector in India to pay attention to critical thinking, to long-range impact, to making a difference in taking the nation forward in nation building. So those are very important ideas, but the devil is always going to be in the details. Um,
That's true.
and
That
let me
is true.
talk about two critical aspects here. One is um, one is uh, one is specialization versus generalization. A little while ago, I was talking about my experience in U.S.
Correct.
university and
Correct.
the concept of the great university that cuts across different areas different functional areas, whether it be science or engineering schools or business schools or arts and so on. This is very much in the tradition of the US university and certainly and the universities
Correct.
elsewhere in the world as well. However, that has not been the typical tradition in India. Typically, we've been
Yes, ma'am.
specialized in specific kinds of disciplines, right? We have colleges, those colleges are parts of universities. So the IITs and the IIMs were a relatively new experiment, but we have also been specialized. IITs are moving into business kinds of areas. But should the IIMs move into add-on engineering schools? Well,
No.
that is necessary. I'm not sure we would do well with it. On the other hand, what I think is a great idea for us to be able to partner with the IIMs. Let me go back to a wonderful experiment that we had at University of Illinois, where we created a joint degree between the engineering school and the business school. Our students loved it. They were placed so well. They, they were in great demand in
Yes.
industry, and they learned a great deal, um, and took on positions of high leadership as they went along. We do the same things at IIM Calcutta. We are so fortunate to have very powerful programs that entail partnerships with one entails a partnerships with ISI and IIT Kharagpur. A second program entails a partnership with IIT Madras and IIT Kanpur. Each one of us brings our specialized skills to the table. Now, in there's always the complexities of managing different kinds of calendars and different kind of governance systems and so on. I think one big difference also in the US and in versus in India is that in the US, I think, when you think about what is a great university or what is a great business school or what's a great engineering school, you would find some degree of consistency and coherence to the answer to those questions, irrespective of whom you asked. You
Absolutely.
understand? So there's a model of what makes a great university is a model that is relatively widely accepted. Now, of course, there's always room for innovation and taking
Correct.
is to the next frontier. But that is an accepted model. That notion of what is a great university, what is a great business school, is not necessarily the same commonly accepted
Correct.
way. There's not a commonly accepted way of thinking about this in India, and so that's a level of maturity that I think that we have to go. Let me link this back to the NEP. When
Please.
we create partnerships across different kinds of institute, one absolutely central critical aspect that has to be addressed is that we have to be on the same page in terms of understanding the business model. Where is it that we want to get? So that meeting of the minds of the outcomes that we wish to accomplish and how we go about it. This involves shared governance. And the government is an incredibly important partner in all of this. I must say that I've always found at IIM Calcutta the government to be a very powerful and helpful partner for us in helping
Yes.
us accomplish our objectives going forward. And so I think that how do we, then, so we're looking at different kinds of institutions, whether it's different kinds of schools. I'm also a great believer in a liberal arts education. My first
Yeah.
degree is in psychology, and I think that I really do think that liberal arts at the first level is just important for breadth of thinking. In the US university, typically, if whether you happen to be in the business school or engineering school, you will be required to have breadth coursework
Yeah.
in order to replicate this idea that I'm talking about. So I think that if we can get together a group of partners who can share their uh, um, vision, come to the
Jointly.
table and achieve that vision in a shared passion, in with truly understanding each other and work. This is the joint venture model that I also have worked on in my research to a great degree. So
Yes. So you're looking at how partnerships from different actors work, different actors across industries and government, how they can come onto the same table and look at shared outcomes, shared
absolutely.
impact. That's a fascinating model. Ma'am, is there any way where I can access some of your papers so that I can put it out there to people to read and understand? Because this has been a fascinating discussion for me. Impact can happen with partnership. You don't have to reinvent knowledge. Sit on the table, jointly agree to an outcome, and then take the hypothesis forward. You can create impact at scale and sustainably, right?
Absolutely. Vishal, I can also ask you, I could also add one more important
Yes,
aspect
please.
of what you have to pay attention to into this partnership model. You have to upfront understand what could go wrong and
Yeah.
what is going to be likely to dissolve the partnership. Because if you don't understand that, you might stumble upon it in an unhappy fashion. So you may as well work at it ex ante. It's yeah. So the papers that I've written on these are
Yes, please.
published in, most of them are published in relatively technical sorts of journals, technical in the business sense. So my most recent paper on JV joint ventures was in the Journal of International Business Studies,
Okay.
and many of my papers in this are in the Strategic Management Journal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Nice. Nice. Guys, remember these names. I'll put it out in writing too. So, you can access some of these papers. Obviously, you have to support academia. You have to pay for these papers, which is very important. Okay. And ma'am, I cannot let you go without asking you, what are you reading apart from management? I'm sure you're an avid reader. You get time. What would you recommend for our audience out here? Mostly young startups, SMBs, and aspiring graduates who want to set up their own company.
Well, I'll tell you a book that I recently came across, and I'm sorry I don't recall the name of it, but I will tell you, I read it because it is written by the chairperson of the IIMCIP
Uh-huh.
board,
Uh-huh.
Srikant Shastri. It's going to be out, and so I was reading the book because he sent me an advance copy, and I think
Uh-huh.
it's absolutely fascinating as an exemplar of what you can accomplish as an entrepreneur in a relatively short period of time using this kind of partnership model. And I don't recall the name of the book right now, but
We'll
Srikant
wait for it.
Shastri is the author.
We'll wait for it. Any other recommendations, ma'am?
Um, you know, this is a relatively old book, but I think it's also a book that is should be in everyone's library.
Yes, please.
It's a book called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance
Yes.
by Robert Pirsig.
Mm-hmm.
And why do I recommend this book? Because it contains the elements of humanity, of science, of hypothesis testing. In fact, there are pages from this book that I advise every one of my doctoral students to read in order to understand what is the core. I ask, what is the core idea behind research, understanding cause and effect linkages? How do you understand? How do you figure out the core problem if the motorcycle is not running? You have to conduct hypothesis tests to understand what's wrong with the motorcycle. Anyway, so that I think is a book that I advise everyone to read.
That is fantastically said. Again, guys, going back, the hypothesis. Why isn't the motorcycle working?
Right.
That's really well said, ma'am. Ma'am, it's been a pleasure. Guys, watch out for this interview. We are going to transcribe it into a 5-minute read too. So you get a digital copy of that. And if you want to watch the long form, enjoy the video. And again, IIMC is the place where you got to go be at and meet the faculty, be at their startup clubs. Check out the IIMCIP, which is also their startup incubation place. Can take their ideas there, travel, guys. And thank you very much, ma'am. I'll see you in a bit.
Thank you very much, Vishal. Enjoyed the conversation.
And I will be in touch. And that's the take. Thank you, ma'am. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you for the opportunity. I always have, you can see I was having fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. So what I'm going to do is if Shamana can connect us over email,
Yeah.
I'm going to take down your number from the email, or I can take it now if you could give it to me.
Mhm.
And I'm going to connect you a whole bunch of people because I like the fact that you talked about partnerships. There's this bunch of guys from technology and marketing who merged together in Bangalore. It's called Upagna Ventures, making enormous impact with business families in Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and Andhra, focusing on going to families and saying, 4 generations of business, you guys are running out of steam. How can we take like it's like if you've ever read the Isaac Asimov's novel Foundation, it's
Mhm.
like that. they take away the knowledge from Empire to a small planet called Trantor. So they are helping the kids and family businesses incubate ideas, run it for them, train these kids, and set them on a course before their old family businesses die out. Interesting bunch of people. You should meet them.
That would be a fun thing to do. And no, I was, for a while, I was teaching a course at ISB, at Indian School of Business for Family
Yeah.
Business. And really, the students, the participants in that course were exactly this young scions of business families who had bright ideas but wanted to take it
Yeah.
and to learn how to take that forward. That's a very fun thing to do. I think, Vishal, it's just so much that is possible.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think that my congratulations to you
Thank
to
you.
helping create those networks, because ultimately it's all about connections. No synergy is possible without that without the glue, without the
Yeah.
connection brings it together. So it's very important the work you do to help that connection come together.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. And I myself am researching on, the origins of political order, and Francis Fukuyama, of course. How do state actors, right, enable everything around them, right? And how the state's policies impacts business. It's a very interesting. And maybe we'll just chat about it when we meet. There's so much to talk about. You've already given me more than an hour and 20 minutes of your time. I look forward to meeting you, ma'am.
I look forward to meeting you one of these days, Vishal.